Good afternoon, members of the media, wider viewing and listening public of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome to this week's post-cabinet media conference. There are two topics that I'd like to address frontally this afternoon, and then of course at the end we'll take a couple questions. The first is, it is rather disappointing and unfortunately not surprising as a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago to see what has taken place both on social media and unfortunately even with mainstream media over the last couple of days with respect to an announcement that I made last week at Post-Cabinet's media conference. And this is with respect to the Prime Minister's invitation and his acceptance of an invitation to visit China. So to put this finally to rest, what I'd like to do is just spend a few minutes outlining once again, and this time with the official documentation, exactly what happened. Trinidad and Tobago has been working very closely with the government of China on a number of initiatives over the past 12 to 18 months. The relationship is a very good relationship, and it is one that we hope that will bear fruit for the people of Trinidad and Tobago in the not too distant future. In fact, one of the initiatives, and the only one I'll touch on this afternoon until the appropriate time, that we've been working on is dealing with claims being made by the Chinese with respect to the former administration's cancellation of the smelter project. You all would recall that the Kamla Persad-Bissessar-led administration coming into office in 2010 took a number of decisions. There was actually an official statement made by the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister Dr. Rowley, in the Parliament many months ago, updating the people of Trinidad and Tobago as to what happened with the cancellation of the smelter project and the fact that the former administration took a very long period to cancel it and were dragging the Chinese and other contractors along. This has of course resulted in a claim being made by the Chinese state-owned company against the people of Trinidad and Tobago for over 1 billion TT dollars. That is one of the initiatives we've been working very closely with the Chinese on in trying to amicably come to a resolution of this in a manner that is best suited for the people of Trinidad and Tobago and in particular the taxpayers. So a mess was made, it was left behind by the former UNC administration of over $1 billion in claims against the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And we've been working on that very closely with the Chinese government. Towards the end of October of this year, the Chinese ambassador paid a visit to the Honorable Prime Minister at the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago and indicated to him that coming out of the conference that was taking place in the People's Republic of China, you would recall that in the month of October, towards the end of October, beginning of November, the Communist Party in China had a party conference that was taking place. That one of the indicators coming out of that conference is that the Chinese would like to extend an invitation to the Honorable Prime Minister. We were already in the works and in discussions with the Chinese with respect to an official visit. And now is a good time for me to explain, because there seem to be a lot of persons out there who are pretending to be experts on this topic. The highest level of visit for the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago to the People's Republic of China is an official visit. It can't be a state visit, and I heard last week in referencing a state visit, because a state visit is head of state to head of state. So it's an official visit. We were working on an official visit for this year, but because the initiatives and the discussions had not yet reached points of fruition, there was a decision taken that we would work on it for next year in 2018. However, at the end of October, the Chinese ambassador came to the Honorable Prime Minister Dr. Rowley and said that coming out of the conference of the Communist Party in China, they would like to extend an invitation to Dr. Rowley and 9 other world leaders to attend in Beijing, China, at the end of November into the beginning of December for high-level discussions and meetings. They wanted to find out whether, because of the short time frame, the Honorable Prime Minister would indicate whether he would accept such an invitation. Immediately, the Honorable Prime Minister indicated to the Chinese that he would be prepared to receive and accept such an invitation if it came to him, because of the state of the relationship and the importance of the relationship between China and Trinidad and Tobago. On the 27th of October of this year, a diplomatic note was sent by the Chinese government to the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and this is how we correspond. A diplomatic note was sent from the Embassy of the People's Republic of China to the Prime Minister, extending an invitation to the Prime Minister through the Ministry of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs. And a letter of invitation was attached to the diplomatic note, inviting the Honorable Prime Minister to attend in dialogue with world political parties at a high-level meeting themed "Work Together to Build a Community of Shared Future for Mankind and a Beautiful World" in Beijing from November 30th to December 3rd. And on this occasion, the CPC leaders will exchange views with dignitaries, experts, and scholars on a variety of issues. It then went on to say, in this official written invitation, the newly elected CPC leaders in the 19th CPC National Congress will expound on up-to-date governance concept of the CPC in person, and then they invited the Honorable Prime Minister to visit other cities in China other than Beijing that would be arranged as part of these after the high-level meetings from the 4th to the 9th of December. When this official invitation came to the Honorable Prime Minister, he accepted the invitation. Immediately, both countries set about in working towards settling the agenda and the schedule for the Prime Minister during the period of the 30th of November to the 3rd of December for him to attend high-level meetings, and thereafter to stay on in China for a number of other meetings and initiatives until the 9th of December. That invitation was officially accepted by the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. What then took place is the Chinese had a change of schedule, right? And as I say, and as I said last week, it was indicated to us that there would be 9 other world leaders attending at these high-level meetings, and the Prime Minister was the only leader from this side who would be in attendance, indicating the importance of the relationship between China and Trinidad and Tobago. I came and I announced that last week Thursday, because of course we always keep the population alert as soon as we can, and this was after the acceptance of the official invitation from the Chinese to what the Prime Minister's movements, intended movements, would be. Something then took place in China, our ally in China, and then they then came to us and said there have been changes with respect to those high-level meetings. They changed the format of those high-level meetings and they downgraded it. And as a result of that, they no longer thought it fit for the Prime Minister to attend these meetings because they were no longer high-level meetings. That is something that the Chinese did. They took that decision. They then immediately extended an invitation officially once again, and this took place on the 14th of November. A couple of days ago, I came out, I issued a statement about my meeting with the Chinese ambassador and the fact that they were now asking and extending an invitation for an official visit. As I explained a short while ago, an official visit is the highest level of visit that the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago can go on in the People's Republic of China. They issued a diplomatic note to that effect, saying that they would like to replace, is the language they use, the invitation of the high-level meetings and replace it with an invitation to the Honorable Prime Minister to pay an official visit next year. The official visit agenda is to be elaborated upon through diplomatic channels, and we're working on that. I issued a statement on that day. Certain persons, including the media, then twisted this, turned it, and really did a disservice to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Understand something, that when we're dealing with foreign sovereign countries, this administration takes it very, very seriously. We dot our I's and cross our T's. So the wave of speculation that took place was then surpassed by persons who saw it fit to make pronouncements, some of them even starting off with the famous preamble, I don't know. So they're admitting they don't know, but. And there were a number of commentators, both on social media as well as reported in the press. After we issued out of the office of the Attorney General, because of the portfolio I was wearing when the ambassador came to meet with me, all of the information very clearly to the public of Trinidad and Tobago, unfortunately, elements in the media did not report it accurately and sought to put their own spin and use words such as snob, etc., etc. I am not going to respond to those types of messages. I'm not going to be drawn into any of these attempts to change a narrative. How important our relationship is with the People's Republic of China and the position that the Prime Minister and the government were put into, the Chinese government, then through the embassy in Trinidad, the Chinese embassy in Trinidad yesterday put out their own statement indicating all that I've just indicated and stating to the public of Trinidad and Tobago that the Chinese side attaches great importance to the relationship shared and enjoyed with the government and people of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and in October 2017 issued an invitation to the Prime Minister. Understand how careful a sophisticated country and sophisticated sovereign countries such as China and our other allies are for the diplomatic community to put out a statement like this. It should be seen for what it is. There are former ambassadors from Trinidad and Tobago who have been awash on social media, not having a clue, not having seen a single piece of paper along the lines that I've shown, which are the diplomatic notes, the letter of invitation, and even the Chinese statement issued yesterday. But they saw it fit to try and mislead the people of Trinidad and Tobago and to create a storm in a teacup when all we were doing as a transparent administration and government was informing the people of Trinidad and Tobago what had happened chronologically. We take serious issue with these persons. We take absolutely no issue and in fact continue to work on and work with the relationship with the People's Republic of China, because it is an important relationship to this administration and to this government. So the Chinese embassy in Trinidad put out a statement confirming that they did issue an invitation to the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and political leader of the People's National Movement, Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, for a meeting in China. The invitation to Dr. Rowley was to attend the Communist Party of China with world political parties high-level meeting scheduled from November 30th to December 3rd with an extended visit until December 9th. We highly appreciate, this is their language, that he accepted the invitation. Due to the rearrangement of invitations for the above-mentioned meeting, and in order to strengthen bilateral activities and enrich deliverables, the Chinese side welcomes Dr. Rowley to pay an official, and they put it in bold, an official visit next year, replacing the previous invitation. It represents the significance of the visit and the importance of the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago to the Chinese side. Both sides will work together to further evaluate our friendly and cooperative relationship of mutual advantage and development to new heights, which will benefit the two countries and their people. Citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, there can be no clearer language in the diplomatic circles and communities than what our strong and friendly ally, the People's Republic of China, has indicated in that press release yesterday. Every single commentator who did not see that preempted it and was premature in it because they were hell-bent in trying to create an issue that quite simply does not exist, including a former head of public service who starts off, when you look at today's newspaper, when you heard him on the television, etc., you say, I don't know. But quite simply, if you don't know, sir, do not comment. If you don't have the facts before you, do not comment, especially when it comes to this sovereign nation of Trinidad and Tobago's relationship with other important sovereign nations, such as the People's Republic of China. There was also, and is also, a former minister in the Ministry of Finance, Mr. Mariano Brown, who claims affiliation to the People's National Movement, but rushed out of the blocks yesterday, posting on social media and then commenting on both television and newspaper print without a single shred of evidence. And in fact, quite ironically, what it is that he was indicating in his article, in his commentary, including his social media commentary, is exactly what he did, is what could have, well, it wouldn't derail, because he's insignificant and he's not going to be able to change the nature and the structure and the importance of the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago and the People's Republic of China. What we ask as a responsible government, as a transparent government, and our record reflects itself from September 2015 to now, that every time something of importance is taking place, we either come to the Parliament and inform the people through the Parliament, we come to these post-cabinet meetings, we may have other media briefings, etc. We always tell the people of Trinidad and Tobago at the appropriate time what it is taking place, because we have nothing to hide. So we ask that in the future, those who want to declare themselves social commentators or those of importance, self-appointed importance or significance, please get the facts first. This government is not in the nature of coming and telling the people of Trinidad and Tobago anything other than the truth, and you can take that assurance from us. So that, as far as we are concerned, is now put squarely to bed. We are working now with the Chinese on the highest type of visit that can take place for the Chinese, for the Prime Minister to China, which is an official visit. It will take place in spring next year. We're right now working out the date. And as the Chinese indicated in their statement, this is now an opportunity for bilateral discussions and conversations at the highest level, and not as part of a group of leaders where there are multi conversations taking place. We will have nothing further to say on that, and we just put down a marker that those who came out rushing out of the blocks, including Robin Montano and others, to try and comment on these things without a single shred of evidence or fact, you are doing a disservice not to us as an administration, not to us as a government, but really to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And they are the ones who will judge how you behave going forward. The next issue I'd like to address is we've seen recently all of a sudden a re-emergence of commentary on the report of the Auditor General. I must say that when I saw that surface within the last couple of days, I had to go and check, because I was not aware of any new report coming out from the Auditor General. The last and most current report of the Auditor General is dated the 27th of April 2017. It is the report of the Auditor General on the public accounts of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year 2016. 1st of October 2015, you will recall this administration came into being in September 2015 to the 30th of September 2016. This Auditor General's report, which is the most current Auditor General's report, actually was for the first year of this administration being in office. What amazed me is the recent commentary that took place that has misled, unfortunately, the public of Trinidad and Tobago to think that there's been a recent Auditor General's report. When we went back to the record, this country would remember or should recall that on June 15, 2017, the Minister of Public Administration and Communications, Minister Maxie Cuffy, put out a very comprehensive statement dealing with certain matters that were raised in this Auditor General's report with respect to the rental of properties. And what I'd like to say is, in our first year of administration, when we came in September 2015, the government's monthly rental bill was around $45.3 million, VAT exclusive. We then immediately, as an administration in that first year of office, work assiduously to locate and identify buildings that were not in use, leases that were not favorable to Trinidad and Tobago, negotiating certain lease rentals downwards that resulted in our first year in office in a monthly saving of $3.2 million. So immediately this administration began to eradicate leases and other rentals that were not in favor of the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago. You all would know as a citizenry that there are certain leases that would have been entered into for extended periods of time. Each lease would have clauses as to when they can be terminated, etc. Even with some of those leases, we sought to renegotiate the rates of rental downwards. There are just 3 items I'd like to address coming out of this recent resurgence of this Auditor General's report for our first year in office. There was reference to a building in Barataria and how that building was not being used and a high level of rent was being paid for it. The record reflects that that was actually addressed by Minister Cuffy in June of this year, where he says, and I quote, "We handed back the keys to a building being rented by the personnel department at over $1 million plus VAT per month for the period or December 10th, 2012 to August 31st, 2016. The building in Barataria was leased by the former administration, with a lease being entered into from the period December 10th, 2012, and it remained unoccupied all the way down to September 2015. As an administration, when we came in, and it took some time to do the various looking into the rentals, etc., being taken place. When this was identified, by August of 2016, we had extricated the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago from this lease arrangement. These things took us some time, but the point is, as soon as it was identified, we began a negotiation process that allowed us to end that rental arrangement, resulting in significant savings to you, the people of Trinidad and Tobago. That is only one example. There are a number of other examples where that took place. As I said, has resulted in significant savings over the period of time that we've been in office. Unfortunately, once again, One Alexandra Place reared its head and is being commentated on as though it is a recent occurrence. At the risk of boring us and at the risk of repeating what has already been dealt with, we think it is important enough to just set out once again chronologically the facts with respect to One Alexandra Place. One Alexandra Place was first leased for 5 years in October 2009. Before the then PNM administration could occupy the building, there was an election in May 2010 and a change of government. As I said, that was a 5-year lease in 2009, which was to expire in 2014. The lease rental at the time was $750,000 plus a month. That was then negotiated downwards by the Public and Real Estate Division, the Legal Services Division of the Ministry of Public Administration, was then negotiated downwards to a rental rate of $600,000 a month with effect from September 1st, 2010 until the expiration of that lease, which was in November 2014. During that period of time, all of which was under the former administration, the Kamala Prasad Bisesa-led administration, in 2010 to 2014, there was no occupation of the building. The monthly rent was paid on a monthly basis. They moved the possession of that building from ministry to ministry. And in fact, the public would recall that one of the issues that held it up was when it was with the Ministry of Local Government, an issue arose with the outfitting. And it was found that the contract awarded for the outfitting of that building was way above the figures that should be expected for the equipment that was being supplied. In fact, as an administration, we have faced litigation because initially we refused to pay for the outfitting. We had a quantity surveyor go in, look at the equipment, etc. But the contract that was entered into by the then UNC-led administration unfortunately bound the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago to pay about $20 million over what they should have paid for that outfitting. And for that whole period from May 2010 to when they demitted office in September 2015, the ministries did not occupy it. It then moved from local government, and they also went and retained PSAEL to do the outfitting, to get around the tender rules, etc. Fast forward now to September 2015, this administration came in place. There were a number of ministries that needed to be accommodated. We immediately set out, because it was on a month-to-month basis, it was being occupied. Out of the F&GP Committee of Cabinet, we gave instructions for discussions and negotiations to take place to get the rental figure down, because by that time there was some dispute as to what the rental figure should have been for 1 Alexandra Place. The Commissioner of Valuations in 2014 said a monthly rent of $765,000. There was then, when we came in, we said that that was unacceptable. We then got a valuation for $475,000. There was then a private valuation report from the landlord for over $1 million. We then said we wanted a second valuation, and now an independent valuation which we received from Lyndon Scott and Associates that put the rental at about $550,000 a month. We eventually were able to negotiate a monthly rental going back to the $600,000 a month, and that is the decision that the cabinet took. Immediately we set about populating the building, and as you all know now, the Ministry of Public Utilities has been in that building occupying it under this administration. We see no issue under our tenure as a government with respect to 1 Alexandra Place. Just to put things in context as to what was going on and what will not happen under this administration, the third issue I'd like to raise is with respect to the purchase of a property at number 3 and 3A Robinson Circular Road in Arima during the period of 2011-2012. On the 17th of October this year, an official letter was sent to me by me as the Minister in the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs by the Ministry of Works and Transport, raising a complaint and requesting that an investigation take place into the purchase of the building that I've just referred to. The facts are as follows. The former Ministry of Transport sought and obtained Cabinet's approval in March 2012 for the purchase of a property in Arima for the establishment of a motor vehicle authority access center in the sum of $27 million. That was approved by the then Cabinet in 2012, the purchase of a building and property in Arima for $27 million. What we found, according to our preliminary investigations, is at the time that property was encumbered by a mortgage from RBC Financial Caribbean Limited in a sum of approximately $14 million. At the time when that administration, and remind yourselves who was the Minister of Works at the time, I believe it was Mr. Devant Maraj. When they went to the Commissioner of Valuations at that time, he valued the property at $26 million. It was purchased, as I said, for $27 million. As part of the government structure and process, the public service process, what has to happen is the Property and Real Estate Division then goes and views the building, gives its recommendations. They will look at certain items and recommend to the government of the day. They are the same ones who assist with the negotiation of rents, etc., how much the building should be purchased for. And on the 5th of October 2011, that division, we refer to as PRESD, the Property and Real Estate Division, warned the then ministry, which was the Ministry of Works and Transport, that the structure of the building was not sound or fit for purpose, and that reports from the Chief Designs Engineer, OSHA, and the Chief Fire Officer were not yet available in order to advise on the building. I have here today with me a copy of the official report from PRESD, and this is from the Permanent Secretary in Ministry of Housing and Environment, where PRESD then fell under, to the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Transport, dated the 5th of October, and I'll leave copies for you all, where they talk about the acquisition of the property at number 3 Robinson Circular Road, Arima, for the establishment of this Motor Vehicle Authority Access Center. They say, it must be noted that PRESD has visited the site to assess the property and is of the view that the building on it is not the soundest structure. We have commissioned reports by the Chief Designs Engineer, OSHA, and the Chief Fire Officer, but these are as yet not available. With our own observation, the building, and given the way in which negotiations are proceeding, because it appears as though they were then negotiating price, with our own observation of the building and given the way in which negotiations are proceeding, we thought it prudent to clarify the Ministry of Transport's intentions for the use of the property. Does the Ministry of Transport plan to refurbish and occupy the building currently on that site, or is it the intention to demolish the building and reconstruct a new building? Obviously, That is a massive red flag, and for the public service to put it in writing in black and white, that is the highest level of warning that can take place. And the simple question they're asking is, are you purchasing this to demolish and construct something, or are you purchasing it to refurbish? If you're purchasing it to refurbish, understand there's serious structural issues. If you're purchasing it to demolish and construct a new building, that obviously feeds into the price, because the price you would pay for just the land alone and a worthless structure, as opposed to a structure that is solid, it's a good engineered structure that you plan to refurbish, would attract a better price than if you're just looking at the land alone. They went on to say, the response to this question will help us to ascertain how much the state should be willing to expend to acquire the property, which is what I just explained. We are unaware of the process which your ministry would have gone through to identify this property. These are public servants putting this on the record for use as a motor vehicle authority. However, if the intention is to demolish the structure and construct a new building, consideration can also be given to identify a parcel of state land which can be used for the purpose. The number of warnings in those 3 paragraphs are: first, it is not a safe structure. There are a number of reports outstanding. They then ask, what are you going to use it for? Don't burden the taxpayers if you're going to purchase it to demolish it and you're going to build a new building on it. And they then go on to say, well, if you want to do that, let us find other state land that is available. So the question arises in the mind of the public servants, why are you so hell-bent on purchasing this particular property? As I said, what is also interesting is when we looked at the cabinet note, there was absolutely no reference in the cabinet note to this report from Presdy and what it said, warning that there should not be a purchase of the building for particular circumstances, or there should be caution, the structure is not structurally sound, etc. This report from Presdy did not make its way into the notes put before cabinet for them to make a decision, which they eventually did, purchasing the building, as I said, for $27 million. The building then turned out to be structurally unsound and unsafe, and they then came with a plan to demolish it, to build a building for, I believe, over $100 million, which did not take place, thankfully. But the question arises, why go to purchase this building for $27 million? And of course, there's a valuation report, they'll say, from the Commissioner of Valuations for $26 million. It seems familiar to the Eden Gardens transaction, where the Commissioner of Valuation said, buy for $180, they bought for $175, but the independent valuation had it at $50 million, which, as you know, is currently before the courts, and we follow the money. I can say now that what we then did is had an independent valuator look at the building, go back in time to say, what would this have been worth if you were purchasing the building and the land for use at the time? And they say it would be worth, in a report dated the 11th of October 2017, about a month ago, estimated the value on the property at the time of purchase by the Ministry of Works and Transport on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago at $18 million. So there is a $9 million variance. It then turns out the building couldn't be used. What we also found out is, notwithstanding the sale of the property in 2012 to the government, the then Ministry of Transport, and again under Mr. Devon Mirage, allowed the previous owner to occupy the property, and he conducted his private hardware business for 1 year, free of rent or other consideration to the state. Purchase at an overvalue, give the former owner the money, allow him to stay in there rent-free, and then afterwards come with plans to demolish the building that you've just paid $9 million too high a value for, using the taxpayers' money of Trinidad and Tobago. It appears as though this is how business was conducted. What I'd like to end by saying with respect to the Auditor General's report, it is not this administration that has continued these leases and rentals and left empty buildings. What we've been working on doing is correcting that. Another point that I've heard made is that there are not leases in place for certain buildings, but there's occupation. That is unfortunately not uncommon due to the process taken by government. Leases by the state have to be executed by the Commissioner of State Lands. There's a process that takes place. Very often landlords allow possession and occupation of the site to the state to take place, and rent may be paid whilst they're outfitting it and building it out for the particular occupation. Members of the media, wider listening and viewing public of Trinidad and Tobago, these are the two matters that I crave your indulgence to address today. I'd open up for a few questions now. Jules.
Is it that the government has, you said you had taken particular issue with the comments about the Prime Minister was snubbed and so on, and you gave your position, the government's position on that. But is it that the government has an issue with criticism in general, or just in this particular instance?
Absolutely not. It is not anything to do whatsoever with criticism. The whole point is, especially when you're dealing with foreign nations and your relationship with sovereign nations, as a country we need to be careful. We set out the facts. There's absolutely nothing that is wrong with the facts that we set out. But then you had people, it wasn't criticism, you had people commenting and twisting what really didn't exist. So it is not a criticism as to why did you accept an invitation to go to China and you shouldn't go to China. It is the creation of fake news. It is the creation of facts that don't exist. Saying that there was a snub, there's no snub. An invitation was extended, it was accepted. The inviter then changed that invitation and offered something else. And we are not going to ask them, well, why and for what reason has that changed? At minimum, that's discourteous. It has absolutely nothing to do with criticism. This government is subjected to criticism. We listen very carefully to criticism, especially constructive criticism. And you never find us lashing out at criticism. What happened here, unfortunately, and then, as I say, in the diplomatic channels, you have to be cautious. You're always working on your relationships with sovereign countries. This person's jumped out. How does the word snob get into it? How does the word, that it was withdrawn, it was, the Prime Minister didn't, there was even a suggestion at one point in time that we had not received an invitation, etc. That's not a criticism. That's the making up of a fact that simply, quite simply doesn't exist.
The Prime Minister's trip being rescheduled, has the government and the people of Trinidad and Tobago have we lost out on any opportunity in not attending the meetings, the high-level meetings that the Prime Minister was originally invited to?
The answer is no, because if you had listened to me carefully, I said they've been downgraded, they're no longer high-level meetings, so they're now a lower-level meeting, and they're no longer the state leaders attending these meetings.
That
absolutely. Understand, this is an invitation from an ally, and the invitation is now for an official visit, which is the highest level. It allows bilateral discussions. The event that was carded is quite simply not taking place anymore. You can't criticize or be upset with anybody over that.
This year, the debt, you said the $1 billion claim. Is that from, because I know the previously statements were made about a claim made, is that from Sural or is that the Exim Bank of China?
No, it's neither. I can't remember. I think, I don't want to misquote which state company it is, but it was a state company that had entered into a Chinese state company that had entered into a contract with Trinidad and Tobago for the construction. It's not the Sural group at all. It's a Chinese company, and they were to build the not the reactors, but no, it's not. Nikwan is something completely different. So it's a Chinese state company.
But the Law Association, this is the Express is reporting, that the Law Association is calling the Chief Justice to answer questions posed by the paper with regard to a story that appeared on Sunday about a meeting held concerning the security of judges. Is this something that has caught the attention of the government? And if so, would the government want to have any conversation with the Chief Justice on the matter?
Everything catches the attention of the government of Trinidad, this government of Trinidad and Tobago. As I've said before, because I've stood here before and addressed matters and issues that you all have raised with respect to the Chief Justice, we respect the separation of powers. There's nothing for this government to get involved in at this point in time. In fact, the government's involvement in matters to do with the judiciary are very, very limited constitutionally. We are looking on, as all citizens are, at a situation that seems to be unfolding.
So just clarifying, just making sure, at this stage you're saying no need for the government to intervene in any way?
Absolutely not. Any other questions?
withdrawn because of the downgrading of the meeting?
The People's Republic of China put out an official statement yesterday from the embassy, which is what I quoted extensively from, and it sets out exactly what I quoted. That is available to the media. Diplomatic notes are not shared publicly.
Okay, because I can't remember in their statement getting the part about downgrade, and even when I checked online regarding this China's World Political Party's high-level meeting, it seems to still be, according to Chinese media, still on and still high-level as far as I understand it from what I've read. My question is, are you aware if the 9 other heads of state, not heads of state, the 9 other countries which were invited, if any of their invitations were withdrawn?
None of the leaders from any of those other nations will be attending any of these meetings. But again, those are questions best addressed to our Chinese counterparts. But again, the creation of this, you started off by saying how I put it across. I've read factually what it is. So the continuum and trying to create that there's some friction or that we've been in any way withdrawn from something that continues to take place quite simply is not the fact.
I don't know, Minister. It seems as though relations with China, they kind of on the brink. I mean, you spoke about the World GTL thing. I know you visited
What
China.
does the World GTL have to do with China? And I didn't speak about the World GTL thing whatsoever.
Chinese Exim Bank, and you had previously...
That's to do with the aluminum smelter that the former administration cancelled. And this is the whole point I was just making, that, we have to be very cautious. I've just come and I've set it out very carefully using documents that exist and that are part of the record to say that there is no issue. You're continuing to try and create an issue is not something we're going to be drawn into.
It's not really trying to create an issue. I think diplomacy is, you get invited and then the invitation is withdrawn. Diplomacy is the way that you bring across that idea that, we've taken back that invitation. So, with all due respect, the Republic of China could say anything that they wanted to say or give any excuse that
they didn't withdraw. The exact language that they used is due to the rearrangement of invitations for the above-mentioned meeting, and perhaps you should get a copy of their statement. Due to the rearrangement of invitations for the above-mentioned meeting, and in order to strengthen bilateral activities and enrich deliverables, the Chinese side welcomes Dr. Rowley to pay, and in bold, an official visit next year, replacing the previous invitation.
Well, in that case, Minister, and I apologize if the government does not consider that a snub, but I think the general public, a lot of people that have spoken to Trinidadians do consider it a snub. As it relates to... Right, I was wondering if you could tell us if the Paris Agreement was ratified today.
I can't.
Grant? I have one more question for you. Do you have any questions in the meantime? With respect to the Auditor General's report, just to let you know, it came out online on November 2nd. So I don't know if that's why you're seeing now the rise of stories regarding it, but just to justify, we got it on November 2nd. Could you tell us, was the monthly loan installment for the Cuba Children's Hospital? Are you aware of that?
I don't have that information presently.
The report again says that it has to be repaid from March 2018, but it didn't say exactly how much was to be paid. Okay. Makeda Antoine, she was the country representative, UN of Geneva, and another story in the media again, it's not being viewed very well. Her appointment is not taken very well by other staff members. Do you have any response to that?
By other staff members, what does that mean? She wasn't part of any staff.
I could go ahead and quote.
With respect to this appointment, and again, quite frankly, the government, and in particular the Honorable Prime Minister, took a decision to give a very highly qualified young person an opportunity. I always say, every time I speak, that one of the legacy items of this Prime Minister and Dr. Rowley is going to be that he gave young people opportunities and a chance. It is somewhat disheartening to see the attempt to discredit this young person who is very highly qualified. And to say that she did not come out of the bowels of the public service and the foreign service is again quite surprising. Because what I did is we had some information pulled. As you know, appointments to ambassadorial post do not require any length of tenure in the foreign service. And in fact, when I was taking a quick look, we had Mr. Neil Parson. These are UNC political appointees. Mr. Neil Parson, who is a veterinary medicine and business management, was actually appointed Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to the United States of America, non-resident ambassador to United States and Mexico and Mexican states, OAS, etc., as a veterinary medicine and business management. And Anil Ramnanan, again veterinary medicine, part-time lecturer as Consul General in Miami. Arudarawati Nanram Gulam, former UNC minister, teacher, public servant, HR consultant. So absolutely no experience whatsoever in the foreign service, was appointed the Consular General in New York. Dr. Vidya Gantota Maraj, former UNC temporary senator, medical doctor, district medical officer, was appointed the Consul General in Toronto, Canada. Hamza Rafiq, former UNC minister, medical doctor, the ambassador to Brazil and ambassador extraordinary plenipotentiary to Uruguay, Paraguay, Chile, and Argentina. Garvin Nicholas, an attorney, former press secretary to PM Kamala Prasad Bissessa, was appointed to the High Commissioner of the United Kingdom. Harry Partap, a former UNC minister, journalist, and a teacher, High Commissioner Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago to South Africa and 9 other countries in South Africa. Therese Baptiste Cornelis, former UNC minister and a lecturer, TNT ambassador to United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, which is the exact post that we're discussing now. John Sandy, a former UNC minister, brigadier general retired, also appointed as the TNT ambassador to United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland. Rodney Charles, educator, journalism, PR, policy advisor, former UNC communications director, was the ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary and permanent representative to United Nations in New York, USA. And a Movin Assam, former UNC minister, former diplomat, ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary.
But does that make it?
What is the point that you get?
I mean, you called out the names, the qualifications. You said that they don't necessarily come from the public service. We get that, but does that make it okay? This particular appointment, does that justify this particular appointment?
There's no need to justify any appointment. That appointment was taken by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, and in particular under the stewardship of the Prime Minister. It is our view that this is a young person, 37 years of age, who is highly qualified in what she's done. You would see from her CV, she's worked in a number of, internationally in a number of places. And at that ambassadorial level, it really is about the art of being able to build relationships, friendships, negotiation, diplomacy. You always have foreign service technocrats who support you. So we see absolutely no issue in it whatsoever.
On another topic, could you tell us, what's the progress of the transition of the sport company to the sport commission? Is there any update?
Today we confirmed a steering committee, and the Minister of Sport will speak about that at the appropriate time, a steering committee under the chairmanship of Mr. Douglas Camacho, and their mandate is to come back to the government and tell us how best to achieve the move from the sport company to a sports commission.
I want to jump back quickly to the issue with Chief Justice Ivor Archie allegations against him. Now, previously the Prime Minister said when we asked him, I can't remember, he was returning from a trip, but we asked him about this particular incident then.
No, you didn't.
With respect to
this particular incident has only arisen in the last few days. I think what you all had asked him about was the Marcia Ayres Caesar matter, correct?
Good memory there. But at that point in time, he said that he did not think the situation was necessary for intervention by the Constitution. The only person who could institute, as you would know, the removal of a Chief Justice is the Prime Minister. Did it at all come across in the cabinet meeting today that now may be the time for intervention, or are you all still looking on? Where's the Great Wall of China?
There was absolutely no discussion today, and again I'd ask that you you separate the issues. There was a Marcia Ayres Caesar. The government took a decision to put that matter because we felt separation of powers, it really was not a governmental issue. We didn't take legislation to the parliament because the opposition said they would not be supporting it. We put it squarely into the court's hands for a decision by them. That's going through the process. So that is going down a natural road and has no need for government intervention. This occasion now, something has arisen in a newspaper report. I think I read today that the Law Association also said that certain claims are unsubstantiated. So whilst they made a call for the Chief Justice to respond, they said claims are unsubstantiated. So what exactly is it for consideration by the government at this stage, understanding very carefully that the framers of the Constitution demarked expressly a separation of powers. There's absolutely nothing for us to look at this stage. Jewel?
Sorry.
You finish? Go on.
Whereas I agree with you that there are different issues, but there are different issues I want to point out surrounding one institution and one individual. That's it, Joel, to continue.
I just wanted to get an understanding of, if you can, the appointment process of a diplomat. In other words, is it the Prime Minister just alone who makes this decision? Is it a cabinet decision? Is it a list of names and one person is selected? How does that work?
Ultimately, that's a decision of the government. The head of the government is the Prime Minister. It is the... I'm not certain if it's written anywhere in law, but at minimum there's a convention that the head of every government, international, they are the ones who appoint. In this case, it's the Prime Minister who appoints. I know the American system, for example, it goes to Congress and that type. Our system simply isn't like that.
And the names you read out under the former administration, so is it therefore that you're saying persons who are critical of this person, you're seeing no issue there, and therefore the government would have seen no issue with persons who would have served in diplomatic posts without any diplomatic experience previously?
Well, I think traditionally, if you all go back as a responsible media and you do a comparison or you compile a list of all persons who have ever served as diplomats on behalf of Trinidad and Tobago at the level of ambassador, there is not any qualification. It is who the government at the time, and in particular the Prime Minister, thinks would best serve the country of Trinidad and Tobago. And as I say, you always have a support staff as an ambassador made up of technocrats and foreign service officers.
There's a national conversation about this particular appointment. Would that give the government any moment of pause to look at the system, change it, put maybe some sort of structure in place in that sense? Or are you satisfied with the status quo?
That quite simply has not arisen for discussion.
I just have a question coming out of the one I can't situation. You gave us some details concerning, the adjustment of the rental for the offices there. I know that with the opening of the government campus, a lot of places that the government would have rented before would now be out of the question. But could you give us an idea of how much the government has saved on what are they looking at different places? That they may need to vacate to reduce the amount of expenditure on rental?
I think the figure that I had quoted before of approximately $3 to $4 million per month, that is the government savings as at May of this year. I don't have whether that has increased, but it probably has increased because as a cabinet we continue to take decisions not to incur unnecessary rentals, and also we are looking at what is owned by the state and occupying what is owned by the state as opposed to leasing private buildings from people.
At this time, would you be able to inform us how many buildings that the government currently rents?
Unfortunately, I don't have that information before me. But I know it has reduced since we've come in because at Cabinet, we've taken a number of decisions to cancel, not necessarily only cancel, but not to renew rentals, etc., and to move the ministries out into either cheaper private accommodation or state-owned accommodation.
I'm guessing on that, you also would not be able to tell us how much the government currently pays in rent for ministries and such.
I may have something to that effect. The annual rent is approximately $291 million VAT exclusive. Okay. Not since last week. He continues to be doing well and to be undergoing his treatment, and we continue to wish him well and to pray for him.
Under the ministry that he's in charge of, the issue of CNMG, the transformation or transition to TTT and so on, any update on that at all?
Not at this time. It is something we're looking at, and we're formulating not only the policy, but we will also be discussing at our level the direction we think TTT should take. Okay, thank you.
Fiasco, 8 officers apparently broke the rules. Given that the report was handed over to the Prime Minister, did that come up for discussion at all?
It didn't come up for discussion at Cabinet, but what happened is the Minister of National Security did obtain an official report with respect to what happened on Sunday. That was then passed to the Office of the Attorney General. We're seeking legal advice on it. We have come to certain preliminary conclusions, but we'll await the advice of senior counsel, and action is going to be taken.
Action against these very officers, aside from disciplinary action?
If the advice comes in, no, it would be disciplinary action, and disciplinary action is legal action.
An article as well as soldiers were being trained to conduct immigration duties.
I didn't read any such article.
There's another fiasco. Are you aware of that at all? Are there any contingency plans?
One of the decisions coming out of what happened on Sunday, or not decision, but one of the matters we've asked to be addressed is that proper contingency plans are put in place to try and avoid a repeat of that. I think I've seen reports that the Chief Immigration Officer, and in fact that was in the official report as well, herself went down there with other senior officers and worked at the desks and took things into place.
But aside from that, are there any other plans aside from getting managers to come out and...
Well, as I say, I mean, I'm not working at immigration, but one of the things that we've asked be done is, and not only with immigration, with a whole host of other things, take a look and see what are your contingency plans. Always try and prepare for the unexpected and have plans in place to deal with it. All right?
There is a contingency plan in place at this time for such an occurrence?
Nothing has come to Cabinet. For Cabinet to be satisfied, we have to have something before us to consider. All right? Thank you all very much.